Hello again, everyone. Fans of Carlton, if there are still any fans. Maybe this just gets picked up by accident. If you're just some strange traveler who happened to stumble upon my video, thank you for listening to it. But don't go anywhere! Stop! Go in the sidebar. Guarantee you it's not as good. Well, it could be as good, but anyway, I'm going to try to take my best shot at keeping you in this one. So, sorry, I kind of blew it the past 2 weeks. I've been lazy. Well, I've also been quite busy, but I've missed 2 consecutive weekends. And I'm going to try to make this a thing that happens with relative frequency. This show I have Carlton's Corner, which the first 2 I thought went pretty well. I liked talking about it. I just it didn't really spur as much interest among my viewers as I had hoped it would, but I think a couple people were able to watch it and get something out of it, which is good. And then maybe, if I keep consistent with my posting of the show, then perhaps it will grow organically, and more and more people will listen, and before you know it, I'll have an additional 10 subscribers off just the show. 10 people willing to say, yes, Carlton, I will listen to you on a recurring basis. And even if I don't listen, I will see your video pop up in my subscriptions box, and I will just callously ignore it and move on to kittens or how to make gingerbread cookies or whatever the flavor of that point in time is. So, but bearing that and not being the case, I will go ahead and give you a show anyway. So perhaps you can accidentally click on it and give her a listen. And also, I was serious about getting suggestions from you guys on show topics, because I've kind of coming up with things that strike me, such as the current topic for the show, which today is Grand Theft Auto 5. The analysis of the story, because I really did enjoy the Grand Theft Auto 5 story, and there was a lot in there. There was a lot of satire for those of you who pay attention to those kinds of things, and there was a lot of social commentary. So I just thought I would take a little bit of time to give my take on the themes and story of Grand Theft Auto 5, and hopefully maybe I could teach you something, or you could have, obviously if you disagree, you could say so in the comments or whatever, and hopefully it might give you a perspective you did not have, because I think, and I mentioned this earlier in one of my last few videos, was that video games are reaching a level of sophistication that I think are pretty significant in terms of how they're written and how the characters are drawn out and stuff. Of course, Red Dead Redemption was pretty heavy, and then BioShock Infinite was quite heavy. That was actually BioShock Infinite was some pretty heavy thematically. It was pretty intense. So I think that's a broader trend going on right now in games, because I think game developers are trying to really engage gamers on a sort of academic level, I guess. Things that you learned in school, you can now apply to video game analysis, which I think is pretty interesting. It makes it more fun to play through the second time. These are kind of the things that are completely devoid in Call of Duty. So anyway, without further ado, I'll go right into to what I think about the game and what I think is important about the game. Now, I think to start off, I'll go over the most important characters. I think, again, just my opinion. If you disagree, let me know. But I think, obviously, Franklin, Michael, and Trevor are very important characters, and I'll explain why. But beyond them, I think the only other characters that really held a lot of significance to me, outside of they stand alone, because there's other characters that are interesting, but they're only kind of they're just ancillary to Franklin, Michael, or Trevor. But I think that Steve Haynes and Devin Weston too were very important characters, and I think that there was a lot of critique wrapped up in them. And So I'll just go on to explain why, right? You have Franklin, the trio in the game, Franklin, Michael, and Trevor. You have three guys who seem like unlikely companions, although two of them have a past. But Franklin, obviously, Trevor's relationship, and he's sort of, I think Franklin's, in the story, Franklin's purpose is to sort of serve as a grounding measure between two very extreme characters, because Michael and Trevor are obviously in their own ways each very unstable, and Franklin a lot of times is the voice of reason amongst their group, which I think it's not to be overlooked that he's like kind of poor or whatever. He comes from like the ghetto. He's like a gangbanger kind of guy, and I think that's not accidental, right? That Franklin, despite his upbringing, is often the most rational and grounded character of the three, and always is the one diffusing Michael and Trevor from doing ridiculous things, which I think is very interesting. Franklin, I think, represents that. Like the broader point is that the underclass, the working class, isn't stupid. Which our society puts a lot of pressure on success and being successful, and that's how, that's where all the brains are in our society. What I think Franklin obviously demonstrates quite the opposite. And Michael is interesting because I think what Michael's purpose is, he's got everything that you're supposed to want in America, I guess. He's got a good-looking wife, and he's got 2 children, and he's got money. And none of those things make him happy. Which I think is very, that resonates with, or could resonate at least with a lot of people in our society, because we put so much value on superficial things like money and looks and what have you. And all those things may end up making Michael miserable anyway. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from his character, is that even though he has all the things you're supposed to want, he's still not happy. Now, that leaves Trevor. Trevor's an interesting... to me, he's a tough read. I'm not really entirely sure on what Trevor's thematic significance is. I mean, obviously, he's very chaotic and very ungrounded. He's wild. He kills indiscriminately, steals indiscriminately. I mean, I suppose, like, you could look at Trevor as just sort of... He's just a personification of chaos. Drugs, alcohol, women. He's all about those things. So really, that's the best I could really do for Trevor. And also, he makes for some interesting situations, though. He creates interesting situations, but for Franklin and Michael. So I think that's probably the best for now, at least. That's what I could say my best read on Trevor. Now, Steve Haynes. Steve Haynes is a very, very interesting character. So you all don't, even though he's very one-dimensional, he's very linear. I think his what he does in the game is more critical of our institutions and our government, more so. Whereas Franklin and Michael and Trevor are more of a critique on our culture. Now, if you don't remember Steve Haynes, he's the corrupt FBI agent who is essentially forcing Michael, Trevor, and Franklin to do dirty work for him and to cover things up. Now, why I think that he's important, barring of course his critique of the government, is that he's federal law enforcement, first of all, which, if any of you really remember any of the other Rockstar games, they don't tend to have a high opinion of federal law enforcement, i.e. the federal agents in Red Dead Redemption. But Steve Haynes is, I think, where his actions really come to personify that critique, is that he's really willing to do anything to further his career, but he also justifies all those things he does by saying, well, it's for the safety of the country, or he calls people terrorists or whatever. And he's even willing to kill agents from a rival government agency just to further his career, just to secure more funding for him, just to you know, keep him out of trouble. He's willing to use extreme levels of violence, and I think that there's some real world parallels to that within our own systems of power. So that's, to me, why I think Steve Haynes is important in that regard. So, and that would leave the last important character, I think, is Devin Weston, which obviously him and Steve Haynes have a lot of crossover time in the game. So I think ultimately what Devin Weston is just a critique of the upper class. Just a no holds barred, like, you know, he's douchey. He's really into yoga and exercise and stuff, which those things are douchey, but, you know, just to an extreme level, and all about his looks and about how awesome he is and how much money he has and all those things. And he's really willing to grind little people under his heels to to move ahead. So, I mean, there's not much depth there, I guess, but I still think it's an important critique of, you know, the ultra rich are not very much concerned with the struggles in the day-to-day operations, if you will, of the working class. So that's what I think ultimately Devin Weston's character serves to personify. And so, in the themes I would like to get into that I think are very important are friendship. Friendship is a major theme in the game, as well as wealth and I put / American dream, like attaining the American dream by wealth. And then also, it's very heavily critical of millennials or vanity culture. You know, selfies, Twitter, Facebooking, that kind of stuff. I see that they lay that on pretty thick in the game, which, you know, I think is a completely fair argument. I think that our culture, especially, so anyway, if you don't know, a millennial is a person who was born after, I think, like 1985 until like just prior to 2000. That's like the millennial. So essentially my age, your age, our age demographic, our generation, if you will. It's extremely critical of the things we hold dear. And I think that the American dream is huge, because it's almost sort of like a shattering the American dream in a way, because the people that are very successful are like criminals and really shitty people, and somebody who's not so successful, like Franklin, at least initially, is really, I think, the most morally bound character. He's kind of always into doing what's right. So I think in that regard, the game was critiquing the American dream, or the pursuit of wealth and furthering oneself, and how that relates to a shared value, I guess, that all of us Americans have. And then, and going back to friendship, I don't quite 100% understand what they're going for with this, but it's a constantly recurring theme about friendship. Trevor and Michael's friendship is always huge, or it's always called into question per se. And Franklin is always reassuring to Michael and Trevor that, hey, we're friends, because a lot of times people don't understand Franklin's motivations. They think that they're trying to use him. He's like, no, it's just the right thing to do, that we're friends. And there's also, and of course, a lot of people don't trust Michael because he early in the game, well, it wasn't revealed until later, but the events early in the game led directly to the arrest of the exoneration of Michael, and then, you know, the arrest of friends. The other character, Brad, who was killed and took Michael's place in the graveyard. So this, and also the characters are always asking things like, if somebody calls someone a friend, they're like, oh, are you my friend? There's just this constant, like, you know, focus on friends and friendship and what is and what is not a friend. So anyway, guys, that was my quick tabletop analysis. I hope you guys liked it. Again, sorry it was late, and I will have more for you guys in the coming weeks, days, what have you. And until then, I'll see you later.